Hello, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Utah-based prog rockers Advent Horizon are making waves in the progressive music world and beyond. After the release of their album, A Cell to Call Home, featuring guest performances from Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater, Dave Meros from Spock's Beard, Randy McStine from Porcupine Tree, Jared Hill from Snowchild, plus album and single artwork by Travis Smith, who's done Opeth, and Devin Townsend. A Cell to Call Home has received high praise internationally from fans and reviewers alike. ProgRadio named A Cell to Call Home their album of the year, while ProgReport and Sonic Perspectives ranked it at number 5 and number 4 on their best of 2023 lists. With the momentum they've gained in 2023, Advent Horizon is ready to take their seat at the table alongside many of progressive rock's most exciting acts. Please welcome lead singer, guitarist, songwriter Rylee McDonald, and of course, guitarist, keyboardist, vocalist Grant Matheson to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, guys.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, well, I think you're the first.
Thanks for having us on.
You're the first prog rock band from Utah. You know, are there others?
Not a lot.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I mean, to be fair, there are a few. I don't know that there's any prog bands that have really taken off in Utah. There's a few that have started that have been friends of ours over the years that have kind of petered out eventually.
Right.
But we'd like to be the exception to that rule and hopefully start a tradition of prog bands coming out of the Beehive State, right?
That'll be very cool. Yeah, I hear it's a beautiful state. I've seen it a couple of times from the airport, and you see the mountains and everything from the airport. But I've never.
Oh, isn't it so cool flying into the airport and flying
incredible.
in through, like you're watching the mountains get pass you as you're. Oh, it's so cool. I love that experience.
Very, very cool. Rylee, is that Geddy Lee on your shirt? I can't tell.
Oh, yes, this is a Geddy Lee shirt. I forgot about that. Yes. And I have the Rush poster behind me.
I saw the Rush poster.
All the tells right now. I'm really giving myself away here.
That's cool. Yep. Let me tell you, you know what I don't like? I don't like when reviewers compare bands to other bands. It's got to stop.
Right.
Right? You guys sound just like these guys and Haken and this and that. I disagree because you guys have your own sound, and I love it. It's a great sound. It's pioneering. This album is incredible. And it took you guys 3 years or something like that to put it together?
So, yeah, it was 3 years from when we started tracking drums until when we had final mixes. The writing phase was a few years before that even. And yeah, it was a long time. We're aware of that. And all I can say in my defense is kids. I had 2 children while we were producing it. And I mean, you know how it is. You have a couple babies at home and you can't get anything done. You try to write music and nope, baby's screaming again. Got to put.
I thought you were trying to say that we were kids, which is also true.
Also true, right?
Yeah.
We're just kids. We're just babies.
In our defense, we never graduated past kindergarten.
Well, if you're musicians, you can't. You got to be kids, man. Always got to be kids.
There's something to be said about that for sure. Yeah. Like I was thinking recently about how being in a band really is like never getting past. I mean, maybe even middle school, but definitely high school. You get a group of dudes together traveling the country in a small van. Like it's just the most immature, silly, ridiculous blend that you get. It's fun. I mean, it's definitely good to have permission to be a kid forever.
Exactly. Yeah. Me too. I'll always be a Toys R Us kid.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You guys actually recorded this yourselves, not in the studio, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which was a change because I think normally you recorded in the studio.
That's true.
Yes. So our first 2 albums were produced with a producer that we love. We still have a good relationship with him. His name is Matt Weiniger.
Okay.
And Matt worked with Primus, with Faith No More, with a bunch of other bands back in the 90s and early 2000s, kind of made a name for himself. doing that like kind of crazy hard rock with a little bit of experimental type stuff. And he did a fantastic job on our first two albums. But in the process of working with him, I gained an obsession with recording and engineering and mixing myself, mostly from watching Matt do his work. That was just a huge inspiration to me as a young musician. So we, over the years, just kind of learned the ropes of recording and eventually said, you know what, why don't we give a try? Why don't we try our hand at recording our own music and see where it takes us? And that's the result is this album.
I also got a degree in digital audio.
Well, that helps.
I should have mentioned that. Yes.
Which is funny because Rylee was actually the one who did almost all the mixing, but we did have a couple days where I went over and was like, hey, here's my suggestions. Here's all the things. Cause like there's the technical side and then there's the artistic like ear side. And I don't know, Rylee has a phenomenal ear and I have a pretty good ear, but also just like a little more of the technical understanding, and also have mastered several albums myself and, you know, for other bands and stuff. And so I think that we had the confidence, I think with our powers combined and just our experience so many times of like recording our own things and trying it and it not working and just experimenting, that we were like, we could spend 20 grand or whatever on doing this, or we could crowdsource when we haven't released anything in like 6 years or 8 years or whatever, or we could try our hand at it. And I think it honestly paid off.
Did you guys also produce the album as well, or did you have a producer? Yeah, you did that too.
Yeah, we did all our own production, and like it was a collaborative project. Honestly, like I wasn't super heavily involved in a lot of the writing or producing, but yeah, with Mike and Rylee, really, our drummer, Mike Lofgren, the two of them were, like kind of hitting it hard. Kason too, I think Kason Wood, he's our bassist / mostly keyboard player now because of this album. We've like switched roles around a bunch, but yeah.
Right. I'm impressed because, you know, when you see a mixing board, it's intimidating. They just keep getting bigger and bigger. You know, all these buttons, you know, I was a top 40 DJ back in the late 70s, so I had my board.
Cool.
Compare that to a mixing board, it's like, come on, it's ridiculous. You know?
Yeah, it's true. Well, now it's like all in the box too. I mean, we did all of this pretty much in the box, meaning like in the computer.
Right.
And there's like unlimited amounts of plugins. So it's like, which one sounds the best? Which where's the golden magic, you know?
Yeah. It gets overwhelming, and it's also very dangerous financially because you as a modern day music producer, you're scrolling through Instagram, and Instagram knows darn well that you like music recording stuff, and Instagram's showing you every ad for every new recording plugin, and it gets expensive very quickly as you see, I want to try that drum trigger plugin. I want to try this new EQ plugin, and it gets dangerous, but yeah, it's been a whole lot of fun to produce stuff ourselves. I think the biggest value of it for me personally is that when you're spending, let's say $50 an hour in a studio, and that the clock is ticking and those dollars are burning, there's this real pressure on you as a singer to get it right the first time and to not experiment, to only do what you know is proven to work and to not really push the boundaries. But when you're producing things yourself, there's no financial implication to me spending 25 hours on one vocal part.
Right.
So we did a lot of that, a lot of spending an incredible amount of time like fine tuning the vocals, making sure that every vocal part was perfect, doing as many takes as it took to get that vocal part exactly what it needed to be. And same with drums, same with bass, same with keyboards. And I think the results of that are twofold. One, that the album turned out amazingly because we spent so much time and so much attention to being nitpicky. But the second result of that is that it took us 3 years to produce it, right? Because we're allowing ourselves so much time. So I don't know. I'm mixed on whether I feel like it's the best way to go. I don't know that I would say it's quote unquote the best way to do it, doing it yourself. But for our purposes personally, I think the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, it was the best decision for us at the time.
I think the key too is to know when to quit. It sounds good. Move on.
Oh my
That is
God.
so hard, man.
That's an art in and of itself. They need to teach a master class about that.
Yeah, it's true.
Some of our songs, if you look at the Pro Tools files for some of our songs, like I think Calling It Off is the one that has the most mixes. I think we got up to like mix 39 of that song.
Wow.
Where we had done 39 separate individual mixes of the song, because you do a mix and then you bounce that mix down, you put it on your phone and you go listen to it in the car and you go, it sounded good in the studio, but in the car, I think this bass guitar part's slightly too loud. Go back to the studio, do a new mix, and you just rinse and repeat for months on end.
Exactly. Well, your first two albums, it was Immured and Stagehound, and those were also incredible albums.
Thank you.
Critically acclaimed releases, but I like this one the best. And this is a concept album. I believe it's about love, dependency, and lost, and a character overcoming addiction. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I said about it. Okay. I want to mention too. Jens Borgren. What has he done with you guys?
So Jens did the mastering on this one.
Okay,
for
the
us.
mastering.
Once we had all of our mixes finished and it sounded the way that we wanted, we sent it over to Jens, and he did both the digital master as well as the vinyl master. So he's the one that kind of put the final polish on all the tracks for us.
Doesn't Abbey Road Studios, they do that now, and they do it cheaply, what I understand, right?
A lot of big studios do mastering for a surprisingly low fee these days. And I think it's because mastering, if you're a mastering engineer, I mean, Grant knows way more about this than I do. Like, Grant literally has taken courses on mastering and knows a lot about it. It's not a very time intensive thing if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, well, no, that's not true. It's not straightforward. Time-wise, though, like if you have a process that you streamlined and you have a system that you trust, you know, you got your speakers and your subwoofer and your room, and even if it's not it's not Warner Brothers Studios, right? Like as long as you can trust it and you have the ear for it, then you can do it in 6 hours. I mean, most mastering engineers in the big leagues, they master an album in 4 to 6 hours typically.
Wow.
And so like that's why
it was that quick. Wow.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool to have that Abbey Road mastering title though on an album? That'd be kind of cool.
Oh yeah,
I know, right?
Sure.
I know, right?
Well, and that's I love Jens Borgren, and that's part of why we chose to work with him is because I mean, you've probably heard his name before. Like, he's worked with every big metal band. Like, he's done Leprous and Haken and Opeth and all these big artists that we love. And that's I knew that he would do a good job. I had no question about it. I knew that we wouldn't be months of going back and forth of me not liking his masters. I knew that he would get it right the first time, and that's why we hired him.
He's got, I think it's Fascination Street Studios is.
In Sweden, right?
Yeah, in Sweden.
Yeah. Those Swedes, man, with their music.
They're incredible.
What they're doing.
I know.
They
the
are
songwriting,
incredible.
the production. There's just like something in the water over there.
Okay, here's what I said about the album. Advent Horizon is a supremely proficient group. Their latest release, A Cell to Call Home, is a concept album to be treasured indefinitely. The future of prog rock preeminence is now because these guys are great. 5 stars. How's that?
Wow.
Wow, that was amazing. What a glowing review. Thank you.
Oh, dude, I love the album, man. It's incredible.
Thank you.
It really is. And then, like I said, it doesn't sound like anybody, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about some of the tracks. You open up with Water.
Yeah.
You have an official video. It's an awesome track. Great lyrics. I call it kind of commercial prog pop in a way.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. I'll take that.
It's a great video out there. Love it. And it
awesome.
Kind of segues into Snow Child, which opens up with classic piano. Who did the piano playing on that?
So the piano for that track was our friend Jared Hill, who you mentioned earlier as a guest. He provided piano for 2 of the tracks on the album. There's Snow Child, which he actually composed that himself and recorded it himself.
Yeah.
I sent him the song Water and showed him how the song ended, and then I showed him how the song How Did It Get So Good started, and I said, I want you to compose something that bridges those two. And that's what he sent to us. It was perfect. Like he didn't
The kid
even
is a savant.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
so good, so talented. His band Snowchild, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
that's we named the track after his band.
After his band. Yeah.
His band Snowchild released an album back in May of last year, and it's incredible. It's fantastic. He did all the guitar work, all the vocals, all the piano on it. I think a lot of the bass guitar work. He did. I think most of the album is Jared. He's a multi-instrumentalist, tremendously talented. Highly recommend checking Snowchild out.
Yeah.
Oh, will do. I've got 4 tracks on this album, which I call my absolute favorites.
Okay.
One of them is How Did It Get So Good, which,
Yeah.
in my opinion, should be a prog rock classic hit. It's got great guitar riffs, cool vocals. This is what I say about certain tracks of prog rock music. I said, this track is a concept album within a single track. That happens a lot. One single track does sound like a whole concept album, and this is one of them. Talk about this tune.
Yeah, so this is one that I like to call we have with throughout our discography, each album has 3 or 4 tracks on it that I lovingly have titled mini epics. They're
Right.
not long enough to be considered a truly epic piece. I think
Right.
most people would consider an epic song to be more than like what 10 minutes long or so. But we tend to write these songs that fall between like 5 and 7 minutes, which How Did It Get So Good, I think clocks in just over 7. But these songs that they're not a traditional song structure. They're not verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, whatever. I like to write these songs that go through, I guess movements would be the way to put it, where you might have a verse and a chorus that happens, but then it moves on to the next section. You have a different verse and chorus for the next section, and then it moves on to the next section. So this song, I wrote the original demo for it back in 2017, and the original version of this song that I wrote was very, very different from how the song ended up. The intro verse, which on the album is just acoustic guitar and vocals, the intro verse of the original version was actually full band, but it wasn't this beautiful ballad thing that you hear on the album. It was very like chipper, like it was very it was
like a sea
like
shanty or something.
Yeah, it was like almost a sea shanty in a weird way. It was honestly, it makes me cringe now listening back to the original demo because compared to where it's come, it was terrible at first. But that original demo, I wrote it and I sent it to Mike. And Mike, our drummer, the thing that his biggest contribution to this band is telling me what sucks about the things that I'm writing. He's really, really good at listening to something and going, hey, man, that chorus is pretty cool, but everything else sucks that you wrote. So just get rid of all the rest of that, but keep the chorus and make the verses sound like da-da-da-da-da, whatever. He'll give me instructions on what he thinks the verse should sound like. And that gives me kind of like a template to work on. And I go back to the drawing board with the song and write it with his opinions taken into consideration.
Mike really is like our producer.
Yeah,
exactly.
When really is the producer role.
We said we didn't have a producer earlier. We do. It's
do.
Mike. He's the one listening and like making those critical decisions of what sounds good, what doesn't sound good. Hey, I think it'd be really sick if we had like a screaming rock organ right here. Like he's good at hearing those fine details. And I guess the way I describe Mike is he's really, really good at knowing what he doesn't like. And that may sound like a negative thing, but it's really not. Like he's the guy that can listen to a song and rather than just saying, I don't like it, he can tell you exactly why he doesn't like it. And that's very helpful in a songwriting setting.
I agree. Yeah. It's good to have a guy like that, critiquing in the band, instead of hearing it from a guy like me, and giving you 2 stars or something like that after it's been recorded,
right. Right. It's a good point. It's like having it is like having our own music critic in the band. It's perfect. It really helps. I've been trying for a long time, for years, I've been trying to get Mike to write album reviews
Mm-hmm.
for other bands because I think he would be very, very good at it.
Sounds like it.
Very good at criticism, but also at telling people like, here's what is awesome about this music, and then here's what's not awesome and why I think it's not awesome. I just think he'd be a very compelling music journalist.
I think you're right. You know, if somebody, you know, if a PR guy, publicist comes up to me or, you know, emails me and tells me, what do you think of this album? Would you like to interview this guy? And I hate the album. I won't have him on because I'm not going to bash him.
Good.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure, man.
You know,
Yeah,
I just won't interview the guy.
That doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, Rolling Stone was known for that. They bashed so many great artists in the past, you know, and I can't do that, you know.
That's brutal, man.
It is brutal.
I can't imagine, like, as an artist, I can't imagine getting on an interview expecting to have this pleasant chat with somebody and then have them just rip into my art. Like, I don't know how I would respond to that, honestly.
I don't know if my heart could take it.
It used to happen all the time back in the 60s and 70s. And you know, they thought they had power by doing that,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
I guess you're right.
That.
I was just reading the Geddy Lee autobiography. Props to Geddy on my shirt, I guess, again. Oh, man, I'm really giving myself away here. I was just reading his autobiography, and he has a whole, it may not be a full chapter, but it's a big chunk of his book, like a whole section, many pages, where he's just talking all about all the negative press that they received back in the 70s. And it's fascinating to hear how brutal these press outlets were to a hard-working band that was doing the best they could.
He's just a working man. I mean, just leave him alone.
Exactly. One of my favorite songs too, by the way.
Oh yeah. Great
track.
The
early Rush is what I liked, you know. I saw Rush open up for Kiss back in 74. It was like 800 people in the audience, and I paid like $4, I think.
Oh my god!
I think it was the Fly By Night
the original Rush. Yeah, I was gonna say Rush or Fly By Night, man.
Yeah.
Oh, what an interesting time to see them.
Yeah,
when they were like still kind of getting their wings, right?
Right.
Very cool.
But I thought Fly By Night was such a great album. Nobody else was really digging it like I was. But you know, I thought it was a good album. I thought it was a really good album.
I agree, man. The song "Fly By Night" was one of the first things I ever learned on the guitar when I was like 12 years old. That song just there's something about Alex Lifeson's guitar writing where he writes guitar parts that they're intricate and they're interesting to listen to, but they're simple enough that a beginner guitarist can kind of listen and kind of pick them out. And I love that because I feel like there's a lot of bands these days that are trying purposely to write the most complex guitar things that they possibly can write. And that's cool to listen to, but that doesn't necessarily inspire young guitar players to pick up the guitar because they're not going to be able to pick it up and play this new crazy complex piece of insanity. I think there's a value to writing music that's simple enough that young people are excited by it and ready to learn it.
I would argue that it also makes it it makes it more listenable too, in my opinion. I think that's one thing I like about this album, because I didn't write any of this album, and I remember talking to Rylee about it. We were doing a rehearsal after the rehearsal or something, and I was like, it's hard to play some of the stuff in this album as I'm learning it. Like, speaking of how did it get so good, that song is a marathon on guitar and bass in the middle, just like the da 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 da. I mean, it's like hand cramping stuff, but it's like never so complex that my hands literally can't do it. And like, there's stuff on Stagehound and Amir that I was like, where did you come up with this chord? I was like, I don't even know what this is doing. But he has like on this album and throughout the whole album, there's like a lot more simpler, straightforward, but there's like flares of little things, like rhythm changes, or it goes to a different riff that's still in the same key, but it like works, and that make it interesting and make it prog, but don't make it just a bunch of noodling. You know what I mean? Or
improvisation. It's not, it's all planned,
It is all planned. Somebody told me something, it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. It was around the time that I started writing all this music, that really hit me as a guitar player. They said the best guitar solos are the ones that you can sing.
Yeah.
And
True.
I thought about that and went, you're right. All of my
Hmm.
favorite guitar solos are ones that I can the melody sticks in my head and I would sing it the way I would sing a vocal part.
Yeah.
And I really, really tried to keep that in mind with this album. I want every guitar solo to be one that sticks in your head like a vocal hook would.
I agree. Yeah. Well, Rain on Open Water, I call that one a kind of a soundtrack for a movie in a way.
Oh,
You know,
cool.
I could see your music being soundtracks also. You
Dude,
know,
I would love that.
you're saying
If you
mini.
know anybody in sync licensing.
I like what you said about mini epic. You know, I like
Uh-huh.
that. It was mini epic is a good, you know, and the other uh thing a lot of people are saying now are not soundtracks. I'm saying well, you know, made for movies or I
Yeah.
can't think of the word now. Cinematic.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
cinematic.
go.
Yeah,
Talking
Cinematic
about
for sure.
music being cinematic, and I hear that a lot because you know one song, one track, you know, you think about it like a movie. You know, it's got a
Mhm.
story, and it's just like a movie basically. And a
Right.
lot of your music is kind of like that. You know, I
Yeah,
got
I
to say
think
though, your flaws. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Beautiful song.
uh,
Dave Meros and is
Thank
it
you.
Christian McDonald? Is she
yeah.
related?
So Kristen's my wife.
That's your
Um,
wife. Are you kidding me?
yeah,
She sings
she's
as
my
good as
wife.
you, man.
She's
No.
She's
she's
great.
awesome. Like she's an incredible singer and she's worked
Wow.
really hard on her voice the last several years.
Really?
So, the way this came about is I record a lot of music in my basement. That's where all this stuff was recorded, is
Huh.
in my home studio in our basement at our house. And over the years, as I've been recording stuff, anytime that I write a part that's too high for me to sing myself, I'll always just yell upstairs, "Hey, Kristen, come down here really quick," and I'll just trick her into walking into my vocal booth and like, "Hey, do you think you could sing this part really
That's
quick?" And she'll
great.
listen to it once or twice, and then she'll sing it back to me, and then before she knows it, she's on like a final product that's on
Wow.
Spotify, and she's been a very good sport about it, but she never like explicitly agreed to being like my go-to female vocalist. She's just kind of become
Why?
that de facto over the years. But I'm so happy with the way it's worked out. I
She's
mean,
an excellent singer. Got a
I
great
don't
voice.
think there's been a single review of this album that
Hmm.
didn't praise her voice. Like even the negative reviews that we've had of this album, they have all had glowing things to say about her voice, and I'm so proud of her for what she's done vocally. That's awesome.
Oh, I'm a sucker for a woman's voice on a prog album. You know, I mean, that's
Absolutely.
oh
Agreed.
God.
Agreed.
And her and Dave were great together. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Dave. Yeah, it's an absolute honor to have Dave on this
Hmm.
song. So Dave has actually been a friend of ours for
Hmm.
years. With the other guests that we have on this album, specifically Randy McStine and Jordan Rudess, those were two that we didn't really know. We
Hmm.
contacted them, and
Right.
well, I guess with Randy, my PR guy was friends with him, and that's how that came about. But we didn't personally know Randy, and we never had met Jordan before.
Hmm.
So those just happened by luck through contacting them. But
Right.
with Dave Meros, um, we were playing years ago, it was probably 2014, 2013. We were playing a like an outdoor concert in Capitol Reef National Park in the middle of Utah,
Hmm.
middle of nowhere. It's like it's seriously it's probably 5 miles away from the nearest significant city, or sorry, 5 hours away from the nearest significant city. And in the middle of nowhere, we're playing this gig, and we were playing some Rush songs, and we'd throw in Roundabout by Yes, and then we'd throw in a few original songs, and we'd play a Led Zeppelin song, and then play another original. And this lady comes up to us and says, "Hey, you guys sound very like progressive rock.
Right.
Is that how you describe your music?" And we said, "Yeah." And she said, "That's really cool. My husband plays in a progressive rock band." And we said, "Oh, that's super cool. That's awesome." And she's like, "Yeah, they're called Spock's Beard."
Oh
And
gosh.
when she said that, like our jaws dropped. My bass player Kason is standing there, and he like almost drops his bass
He
guitar.
Oh
He's like,
flipped.
man.
"Wait, what? We just we just met Dave Meros' wife."
Oh
And
geez.
so she bought a copy of our first album, Immured, because this
Hmm.
is before Stagehound came out, and she brought it home to Dave. And Dave emailed us about 2 weeks later saying, "Hey, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not impressed by a lot of modern music. Like I don't really find myself getting into a lot of modern bands that
Right.
people show me, but I can't stop listening to your album. I really love it. I'm excited to
That's
see where you
great.
guys go. And that was the beginning of this friendship with Dave. Since then he's been a huge supporter of ours. He's come out to see us live. He's given us critique and like advice on how to proceed as a young prog band.
Hmm.
And then most recently with this new album, we are so excited that he agreed to play bass on one of the tracks, and that's how that came about.
That is very cool. You just never know what's going to happen day to day,
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Prog's a small world
It is a small
sometimes.
world.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's cool to be a part of such a small but vibrant community.
Yeah,
We've all played in other genres before. Like we've played in rock bands and in
right.
pop bands and in indie bands, and all the other genres that I've ever personally played in, you feel like you're just like you feel like you're dropping a pebble in the ocean,
Yep.
right? Like you're never, the wave will only spread so far and then it peters out and nobody else ever
Hmm.
recognizes you. But in the prog world, it's a small enough world that it's actually not that hard to become a part of the community and release something and get recognized by that community. It's been really gratifying to be a part of this world.
There's nothing like the Prague family. And it's
Totally.
always been that way ever since the 60s. You know,
Yep.
since the days of Yes and Emerson Lake and Palmer, and they're all kind of a tight-knit community,
Right.
Yeah.
and they still
Well, that's
are.
true. I mean, you
Yeah,
see even the members of all those bands, they all kind of
yeah,
intertwined, right? Like
they
you'd
do.
see Bill Bruford playing with King Crimson, and then he plays
Yeah.
with Yes, and then he's kind of like all over the place. And there's a million musicians that were that way in that crowd. It's very cool.
Look how many bands they play with, like
Right.
Portnoy on drums. He
Oh
plays with
yeah. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh.
everybody, Neil
Yep.
Portnoy and Neil Morris, and I mean the list goes on and on and on.
Yep.
I mean most prog bands today they belong to 3 or 4 different bands. You know,
Right. Well, that's great though.
yeah,
That's awesome, man. It means that there's enough interest in that world for
yep,
these people to make not just a career out of it, but make a
hmm,
life out of it and have
yeah,
like a support group and a community and have like a whole life that exists within that world.
exactly.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing, and the best players are prog players, and I really mean that. You know,
For sure.
they're the best. Couple of other favorite tracks, Control.
Mm.
Very cool track, very cool spooky type guitars. That's a saxophone in there, right? You got a sax?
Yeah.
I love the
Yes.
sax. It really
I
surprised me. Who's playing sax?
So that's our friend Hayden Payne, which
Okay.
I just have to say he has the coolest name ever. He sounds like a pro
Hayden
wrestler or
Payne.
something. Um, Hayden is a good friend of ours. He plays in Utah in several party bands, and he's
Hmm.
also a DJ. So I knew him from the wedding world. All of us members of Advent also play
Right.
on the side with event bands. We do
Right.
high budget weddings and all that kind of stuff, corporate gigs. Hayden is the saxophone player in one of the wedding bands that I play with. And I've always been super impressed by his playing. He eventually ended up joining our Pink Floyd tribute band because we also,
Hmm.
in addition to all those things, we also have a Pink Floyd tribute band, of course. Because that's
'Cause we don't have
that's like a
enough.
rite of passage as a musician. You have to have a Pink Floyd tribute band.
As a prog
Um,
musician anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
so Hayden became our sax player for our Floyd tribute, and then it was just a natural thing to ask him to do this. And we actually wrote this saxophone solo, Hayden and I together,
Hmm.
as he recorded it. So I brought him into my studio. I had him do 4 or 5 improvised takes over the solo part. And then we listened back to those takes and we made notes about what little things we liked from his improvs.
Hmm.
And we took those pieces and we together we kind of crafted them into a solo that flowed nicely the way we
I
want it
love
to.
it,
And
man.
it
There's
I'm so stoked with how that part turned out.
sax goes with prog, and so does the violin, both of them,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I
Since
would
Yeah.
the
love to
old
have a
days.
violin player on the next album.
Yeah,
That'd be sweet.
that would be great. Yep. Um, this track is incredible, and it's the title track, "Tell to Call Home." Kind of a
Hmm.
psychedelic intro. You know what? I heard a few elements of the Beatles in the vocal structure. I don't
Oh,
know if
for
you heard
sure.
it or not.
Yeah.
I did. Um, Incredible song.
Especially in the chorus of the song, I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah.
There's a lot of like back and forth vocal things. You have that
Yep.
maybe my angels have
Yeah,
peace at
exactly. There you
last.
go.
And then you have these back and forth things where the at last come in. That's so
Yeah,
Beatles to do that, to have
it
that like
did.
that duality of vocals
I
going
loved
on.
it.
Which all the background vocals on that song are Grant, by the way. I'm
Yay, I did
I'm
something.
Really
happy
awesome,
that
Grant.
we got your voice in somewhere on the album.
I know. I think Riley was just like, I'll just record it myself. He was like, I want to have Grant do all the backup vocals on this album. And then we live like not that far away. I know there's
Mhm.
people all over the country and even all over the world that are like, they'll drive an hour to the grocery store or whatever. But he lives like 45 minutes from my house. And our schedules are always crazy. And he was like, I'll just record it myself, and then just stuck with it. But that one, he was insistent on getting me in the studio. So we spent a day doing them. It was a fun one to sing on. And now, of course, live I do like a ton of vocals,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I didn't get the pleasure of being on the rest of them. But yeah, that one's me. I did
That's
something.
great.
It was fun.
Kind of a 60s sound in a way. And, I don't know who sounded it. It could have been Riley. I don't know. It reminded me a little bit of Graham Nash, the voice, little Graham
Okay,
Nash
yeah.
voice, you know?
Yeah, I could hear that a little
Interesting.
bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call Graham Nash one of my biggest influences, but I definitely like that whole era of kind
Hmm.
of like singer-songwritery rock music
Right.
has been very influential on me just in general as a singer. So yeah, I get it.
Well, that track reminded me of that. And it was a long track too, 10 minutes and 14 seconds,
Yep,
you
we
know?
had to get one proper epic on the album.
One with a real good length to it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you end the album with Hold Me. And here's another thing I've coined, musically mature.
Hmm.
It's a
Oh, that's
musically
cool.
mature track, because you guys, the bands just sound so good. It sounds like you guys have been around a long time. That's what the band
Oh
sounds
yeah.
like, you know?
We've been playing together for over a decade.
Well,
So
there you go. Then I'm right.
yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful
We've been
track. Beautiful track. Hold
Thank
Me.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
it's a
Yeah,
great
I'm
album,
really
you
proud of how
guys.
that one turned out.
Yeah, it's a
Thank you,
great
man.
album. It really is. What's next? Are you working on another one or not? Is it too soon?
Yeah,
All of
we're
it.
so I've been spending time every week writing new demos for stuff. So Kaysen has been really interested in writing keyboard parts lately, which is cool because in the past everything we've ever written has been written on a guitar. There's literally never been a single Advent Horizon song that didn't start as me with an acoustic guitar writing the song.
Mm-hmm.
But now Kaysen is starting to send me all these little keyboard demos of things that
Okay.
he's been writing in his studio, and some of them are really cool. So it's kind
Yeah.
of inspired me to take a different approach to writing the new songs for the next upcoming album. Some of them for sure will still be, me with an acoustic guitar because that's just the way I naturally write music.
Right.
But I think a lot of the tracks from our next album are going to be starting with Kaysen on keys and me writing the song around the keyboard parts that he gives me. Kaysen has spent the last couple of years amassing this crazy collection of both vintage and modern synthesizers, organs, electric
Really?
pianos. He has an old 1970s Rhodes that he's
Wow.
restored, an old Wurlitzer that he's got. He has Hammond B8 organ that he has
Hmm.
like
Oh yeah.
personally restored. He tore the thing to pieces and had a million pieces of it all over his basement and rebuilt it and cleaned it all out and oiled it and did everything himself. And he's really just dove headfirst into the keyboard world,
Yeah.
which is cool to see because he joined this band as strictly a bass player, didn't know
Hmm.
the first thing about keyboards, had never really touched a piano seriously until about 3 or 4 years ago. And he's gone from being 100% bass player to pretty much 100% piano player now.
Oh, wow.
It's
Yeah. Or
it's
keyboard
impressive.
player.
He's a fantastic keyboard player. He's definitely got his work cut out for him with the
Right.
new material that we're going to be playing live.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard that Snow Child, that classical piano piece. He's got to
Mhm.
learn that now. He's got to play it live. Same with the Jordan Rudess solo on Calling It Off. Kaysen's he's already learned
already
that one
learned that
actually.
one.
He's got it. He's got it pretty darn solid. I won't say it's perfect. He's still got some work to do and he's aware of that, but
Mhm.
it is way closer than I could ever dream of coming to accomplishing that solo. He's very accomplished. We're
Yeah.
proud of him.
Kaysen's a champ.
I just want to mention the members of the band. Of course, Rylee McDonald, vocals, guitars, keys. Mike Lofgreen, drums, percussion.
Yep.
Kason Wood, bass, keys, trombone. And of course, Grant Matheson, guitar, keys, vocals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And any surprise guest you decide to.
When we now have Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris isn't listed on the album, but we have Chris Hartman who's filling in. He's our now de facto sort of guitarist and bassist. So me, Chris, and Kason are like playing the shuffle game with the live thing. Because we're like, I mean, we could hire another dedicated keyboard player, we could get another bass player or whatever, just add more members to this conglomerate. But we're like, Rush did it with 3. Why can't we do it with 5?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're like, we got this. So
it is amazing that Rush did it with 3, isn't it? And
yeah. I mean, he literally played with his toes, and you're like, and I want to hire another keyboard player. Like, we'll figure it out.
And you can always bring in sax or violin or,
Yeah. Yeah, we can have guest people. And Kristen will be there at some of the shows, doing some of the vocals. And we still have to iron out some of those details. But, you're talking about what we're doing going forward right now. There's writing, of course, but, we're planning some local shows here.
Good.
In Utah. So we have, I don't know how much of our following now that we've released this album, like what percentage is here locally and what is out of the country. Cause we've got people, a small amount of people in a lot of places, you know what I mean? And so we'll have to see how that goes, but, definitely going to book some local shows here in the next couple of months. And then we would love to get onto some prog festivals like in New Jersey. We're looking at one in the UK. Isn't there one in the Netherlands? Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of festivals. I can't talk.
But I mean
that
we're like actually trying
details,
to get into,
But yeah, we have spoken with various prog festivals who have expressed some level of interest in booking us, but it's all very speculative at this point. Nothing's set in stone, but we are very much hoping. That's our big goal right now as far as live performance is to get on some of the festivals both in the US and in Europe.
Yeah, if you can get on some of those cruises also.
Cruise to the Edge or absolutely.
I just want to cruise the Mediterranean. That's all. Like if we could get on a cruise and cruise the Mediterranean and play shows, I'd be like, yeah. Or a tour out there, I'd be like, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think overseas though is so important because they're so in tune to prog music. I mean, big time. And
absolutely.
I think you guys would do incredible overseas if you did a tour.
Well, the response to this album has really shown that. I don't think any of us realized just how much European and South American also audiences love prog and metal and rock music. It's just been absolutely astounding to us to see how many people in Germany, in Denmark, in Switzerland, in Sweden, in the UK, but also in Brazil, in Chile,
Latin
in
America, man.
In Mexico have latched onto our music, and it's really inspired us to kind of get our act together and figure out how to get on the road as a band.
The new hotspot in South America is Chile.
Oh, really?
A lot of bands doing live albums now in Chile, and big success. So
I think actually if we look at our Spotify numbers, like at the analytics right now, I think if I remember correctly, Chile is our #1 country from worldwide, even above the United States right now. We have more listeners in Chile than anywhere else. Interestingly, I would not have expected that, but
go to Chile.
We're getting messages from people all the time in Chile saying, "Hey, when are you coming down here?" And I would love to play in Latin America, and I'm sure we will. Especially Mexico is pretty accessible to us. Right. In Utah, we're only a 12-hour drive from the border. It's not that difficult for us to get to Mexico. So I'm sure that will happen relatively soon. But the rest of Latin America is tough, man, because South America, it's not like Europe where you can rent a van and drive from one country to the next. Like I was looking at it last week. If you get on Google Maps and tell it to Google Maps direct you from Quito, Ecuador to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Do you want to guess how long the drive is?
I can't even imagine.
What's your guess, Grant? What's your guess?
Like probably 40 something hours.
Oh, no, sir. No,
I have no idea. I have no idea.
It's like 131 hours.
Oh
my God.
Driving, and that's Quito to Rio de Janeiro, that's I mean that's a long way, but that's like not that much different as the crow flies than like Los Angeles to New York. You
Yeah.
wouldn't
That's
think
what I
it,
was wondering.
but
Yeah.
it's because South America has so many geographical
Right.
barriers that make it
Yeah.
impossible to just travel.
Yeah. The Andes. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
why it's so
gnarly.
much easier to go to Europe, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. You guys actually opened for Foreigner and Leonard Skinner, right?
We did once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It was so we've done Styx, Don Felder, let's think here. Foreigner, Leonard Skinner, Kansas, Warrant. There's some others that I'm forgetting too, but yeah, those are the big ticket ones that we've opened for.
Why can't they take you on tour with them, you know?
I know. Right?
Yeah,
I think we could reach out to Paul Ehart from Kansas and be like, hey, remember that
Yeah.
1 5-minute conversation we
man.
had with you? Could we like tour with you guys?
I know Joe, the new violin player from Kansas, Joe Denizon.
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
a great guy.
Oh.
He's a prog guy too.
He's a great guy.
He's played with a
Yeah.
lot of prog groups. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hook us up, man. Let's
All
go.
right. I'll see what I can do.
Make the
Would
connection.
love to tour with those guys. They seemed awesome.
It
Paul, the
would
drummer,
make
Paul
sense.
Ehart from Kansas, is
Yeah,
a gem of a human.
I've interviewed Phil and I've interviewed
Nice.
guitar player as well.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they're great guys.
That's awesome.
Really
Nice.
good guys. Somebody, I'm going to quote somebody here. I think it's Rylee. We tried
Okay.
every way that we could to figure out how to make money from music, but there was really no money to be made. So eventually we realized if we don't find some way to make money off music, the band is going to have to break up. So we decided, let's start a cover band. That was very
man, the
ingenious,
age-old
though, man.
story,
That's the only way to
right?
do it.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah,
That did happen
and
to us and is still currently happening to us.
Well,
We love it.
it's really been the saving grace, honestly, for us.
Sure.
Because we realized 5 or 6 years ago that we are very, very good at covering other people's music. I mean, we can play "Carry On My Wayward Son" by Kansas, and if you close your eyes, you wouldn't know it wasn't Kansas playing it.
right.
And that's like, I don't mean to sound too like boastful saying that, but we are darn good at playing other people's music. And we realized that like we in Advent Horizon sets, we would throw in one cover. We'd play a bunch of original music, then we'd play a cover, and we'd do Tom Sawyer by Rush or Carry On My Wayward Son or Roundabout or whatever. And we started getting a lot of people contacting us saying, hey, I saw you guys play. Your cover of Carry On My Wayward Son was absolutely wicked. Can I hire you to play for my corporate party? I just want you to play a bunch of classic rock stuff. Can you play lots of Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Kansas and Boston and Styx and Journey and whatever, right? And so we started getting all these offers, and we realized we had simultaneously a business opportunity, but also a branding problem, right? That like we didn't want Advent Horizon to become known as the band that plays Carry On My Wayward Son.
And has some original tunes on the side.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a wedding band.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was a big risk to us. And so this was I have to give Mike, our drummer, credit on this. It was very much at Mike's insistence that we split those entities. We have Advent Horizon known as exclusively an original band that only plays original material. And then we create a whole new band, which we named Shuffle.
Right.
And Shuffle is our party band. And we have since it was, I think, 2018 when we officially started Shuffle. And
no, really? I thought it was
2018.
2018.
That was the first year that we had Shuffle gigs on the books.
Oh, except that is like, yeah, that's 6 years ago now. So yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
been
thought
that
it was
long,
2017. Man. Anyway, I will correct
It
you
was-
on one thing though. I actually think it was Erica, who is Kaysen's wife, who first had the idea. And then
splitting. Yeah,
I believe it was of having a cover band idea. And if it wasn't her originally, like her and Mike were definitely on the same page and we're like, yeah, you should do this. And then it was a year later that Rylee was like, hey guys, we should do this. And we're all like, yeah. I mean, I was like, sure, I'm down. But Mike
Why
was
not?
like, I've been saying this for a year, bro. Classic.
That's part of
Mike.
our band dynamic is that that I'm such a control freak about everything that I will admit I'm very, very bad at taking other people's advice. I'm just so headstrong.
That's not true though. I don't think that's true. You're doing yourself a disservice. I think what it was is like, well, partly that, but you've grown more humble over time in your old age now that we're
old
in our
age.
30s. But it's also like it was the momentum of things. It was like, okay, like it wasn't like you didn't consider the idea. You weren't like, no, that's a terrible idea. You were like, I'll think about it, like maybe. But like you were hustling, you were trying to make money for the band, you were like doing all these other things. And then you were like, yeah, okay, it's time. Like, and then when Rylee decides it's time, and we do it.
Well, Mike always jokes that he has to keep telling me an idea long enough for me to think it's my own idea, and then I'll do it.
He inceptions.
That's what I always jokes about. But anyway, so in any case, we started Shuffle, and we started with smaller things like city festivals and arts fairs and stuff like that. But it very quickly grew to the point where now almost 100% of our Shuffle gigs are like really high budget weddings, corporate events. We've been flown all over the country playing high budget corporate gigs. And it's honestly, it's actually been really gratifying and fun.
Sure.
I know there's a lot of musicians that are very against doing the cover band thing, and losing your own artistic identity.
Right.
But I would like to argue personally that there's a difference between being an artist and being a performer. And when you're an original musician on stage playing your original music, you are first and foremost an artist. You are displaying your art to the world. But when you're on stage playing a Bruno Mars song for a bunch of, dancing bridesmaids at a wedding, you're not an artist. You have zero artistic integrity there. You have to be okay with that. But you are a performer in that moment. And you learn real fast how to be a darn good stage performer. When you're doing these weddings and corporate gigs. And it has been a huge help to us as musicians, learning how to not just play crazy, Eddie Van Halen shreddy guitar solos, but to also look the rock and roll part, and how to look like you're having a fun time and also help the audience have a fun time. And we've become much, much better performers because of it.
There are some great music legends that are horrible on stage, as far as like what you're saying, like Eric Clapton. He just stands there. Sometimes he'll turn his back to the audience.
Right.
You guys have become showmen, and that's what the people want. They really do want that. And I know a lot of great cover bands that do like yacht rock, which is really popular. They're opening up in Vegas. They're they're headlining in Vegas now, and they're making a ton of money. So there's nothing wrong with it. I wrote an article years ago and I said, I thought cover and tribute bands may eventually take over the entire music scene, and it probably will eventually, because everybody's going to die.
It's an unfortunate truth, but I don't disagree.
And look what happened with John Anderson left. Yes, they got it. Who do they get? A cover tribute band guy, Journey.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Journey did the same. Arnel Pineda, and then.
So watch out for Rylee. They may steal Rylee in a way.
There we go. Oh, dude, yeah. Who would I even fit with? No, I don't even want to think about that. That's stressful.
Maybe.
I could maybe fill for Tommy Shaw. Maybe. Tommy's got a little more range than I do, but I could maybe.
I don't know, man. I love you, Rylee, but you can't sing like him. He is so good.
he's a master for sure.
But like you sing your own art, and he couldn't sing your art like you do. You know what I mean? Like it's
I bet he could. I bet he could do my art. I don't know if I can.
I tell you what.
Tommy's a genius.
Geddy Lee can't sing anymore. I'm sorry to say, his voice is gone. So
love the guy.
So Rylee steps in with the new Rush.
Right?
No, don't make me think about that.
Geddy will still be there playing bass and writing.
Right. And Riley's just singing.
Yeah, Rylee can sing.
You don't know this, but I actually do. I'm not a huge Rush. I like the Rush songs I like.
Right.
But I'm not a super fan like Mike and Rylee and Kaysen in our band, right? And even Chris, I feel like, is a bigger Rush fan than me. But I do a pretty good Geddy Lee impression.
Do you really?
I can do pretty mean Tom Sawyer, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can do pretty mean Tom Sawyer. I don't know if it's Dead Ringer, but I can hit it in the cover band scene.
I got to mention
maybe
something.
Maybe get me, Rylee. Maybe I'll be the next singer for Rush, which would be ironic.
It could be. I got to mention something about your cover bands. You also do a Pink Floyd thing called The Great Gig. You got 13 members. Is that right?
No.
No?
Well,
There was
kind
one
of.
show where we had 13 people on stage.
Okay.
We have I believe it's 10 official band members for that one.
Still a lot.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot of people, and I think we did that because with that group, we wanted it to sound as full as it could possibly sound. We wanted
Right.
to authentically recreate the music of Pink Floyd without using backing tracks.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you've got to have a saxophone player, and you've
Yeah.
got to have a female lead vocalist, and you've got to have at least 2 keyboard players because there's way too many keyboard parts, and at least 2 guitar players because there's way too many guitar parts. So you just
Yeah.
add up the sum of all that, and you logically
Right.
get to at least 10 people.
Yeah.
How many gigs do you do as Pink Floyd?
None,
not
because
many.
we're not Pink Floyd.
I
I wish.
you.
No. We only do like one a year these days.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If that. It's a really intense, like, so talk about like this, the Pink Floyd project for me has been a weird gray area for that like performer artist
Right.
dynamic, because Pink Floyd's music is so deep and like you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm singing any of those parts, I'm like becoming Roger Waters and like what he felt when he sang that and what he felt when he wrote that. Like what was the one? Don't Leave Me Now. A little bit of a more obscure. I mean, if you could call anything on the wall obscure, it's not another brick in the wall, right? It's and it's just like emotional and whatever. And it's like so much output, not to mention the logistics of the show, getting all the band members together, getting the money there. Like the time we spent on that show for what we got paid, it was cents on the hour.
Yeah, the big production.
For like rehearsal and, and we have a lighting guy who comes. It's intense.
Yeah.
And we love doing it for the love of the art. It's not for the money because we do not get paid enough for that. It's just local. And honestly, my favorite version of that show, we played a local venue called the Depot. But I mean, lots of big names have come through the Depot, including Robert Plant and like tons of others. So it's a big enough venue. It's like a 1,200 person capacity. It's owned by Live Nation. And so we played there. And my favorite one of that version of that show was when they just gave away a bunch of tickets. And like, they have a bar, so they make money at the bar and they give us a little bit of a guarantee. They were like on the radio, using all the promotion, whatever, and just packed the house. I mean, it was a full house, 1,200 people there. And it was just like great to be in that community with those people. And people were like crying and like just jaw dropped. And like, cause we really put our heart and soul into that performance as if we were the artists,
It's amazing how many tribute bands there are to Pink Floyd now,
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, probably more for Floyd than for anything else, honestly.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely.
True. Their stuff is
the other, the Modern Retrospect, is that still going on too? That's another band of yours?
Yeah. So that's a band that I'm a part of.
Okay.
It's not really our band.
Yeah, that all of the other bands that we've mentioned, all of the Advent guys are a part of all of those other bands.
Okay.
Modern Retrospect is just me though. It's a 10-piece band that I got hired to be their guitar player a few years back, and they're another like event corporate party band. They focus a little more on pop music, whereas our other party band Shuffle is more rock focused.
Right.
So we do Modern Retrospect does a lot of like pop and soul, and that we'll do like. We'll do James Brown and Aretha Franklin right next to Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran.
Okay.
So it's a different ball game. It's a lot of fun being involved with that, but that is definitely not like my band. That's just a band that I'm filling the role right there. I'm an employee of that organization.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But Rylee has connected our band Shuffle and our members with that band and their network of party bands. And so Kaysen, our bassist, and Mike have all subbed for that band and other bands that they manage.
Okay.
So like we all know each other, we're all friends and stuff. We're not like they're the ones who lead that effort, and then we have like Full and Advent.
Yeah. Rylee.
Yeah, we have a lot of bands.
You put out some singles out there, right? End of the Road, right?
Oh,
we are here.
End of the road. Whoa, man.
Yeah, this man knows how to do his research.
Whoa, what the
Grace, right?
Oh yeah, Grace. That's one that I sung on. I wrote
Grace
all
Shift.
the vocals and stuff. Yeah, for sure. There's been a lot of random things I've been involved in over the years.
Yeah.
Out of everything you mentioned, the only one that I would recommend that people listen to
Mm-hmm.
personally, because it's the standard of excellence that I
Yeah.
uh, yearn to achieve, is End of the Road. That's one that
Yep.
um, that song came out. It was actually the week that all the COVID lockdowns happened.
2020. I
Um,
think. Yeah.
2020,
Yeah.
I was stuck in my house, didn't know what to do, didn't know what was going to become of the world, and I just picked up my acoustic guitar and just wrote a song about what
Hmm.
I was feeling, and I wrote the full song within a couple of hours. I recorded it within the next 6 hours, completely fully produced it. I had Kristen come down because there were vocal parts that were too high for me to sing that I had her sing, and I mixed the whole thing, and then I literally emailed it to Grant that night and said, "Hey, master this for me." And Grant mastered it, and then I released it on Spotify the next day.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
that was just a very quick turnaround, spur of the moment thing. But I actually totally forgot about that song until about 2 weeks ago, when I was playing an acoustic gig at a ski resort in Salt Lake, just in the mountains above Salt Lake, just
Right.
me solo acoustic, and somebody in the crowd just yells, "Play Under the Road." And I'm like, you got to remember, like, I'm playing an acoustic gig. I'm playing Elton John, and I'm playing like Led Zeppelin, and I'm playing the Beatles. And then in the middle of all these other cover songs that I'm doing, somebody requests End of the Road, and I'm like,
That's
what's
funny.
that? Is that a Red Hot Chili Pepper song? Is that like Under the Bridge or something? Or is this person like just mistakenly asking for Under the Bridge and thinking it's called End of the Road? And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "It's your song, End of the Road." And I had
No,
I
wait, the
had
way
to
you
look
phrased it
this.
to me, the way you phrased it to me was, "Who wrote that?" And they're
Oh
like,
yeah, I said,
"You
"Wait, who
did."
wrote that?" And they
That's
said,
funny.
"You did." And I had to look it up on Spotify, put in my AirPods on stage, look it up on Spotify, and listen to it to
My
go, "Oh
gosh.
yeah, this
Yeah.
song."
I did right.
I did
That's
write that. So
funny.
yeah, I mean that song's got a total of a couple hundred streams on Spotify, I think. So not
Yeah.
definitely not world famous by any means, but I am proud of it nonetheless. I would love if more people would hear it.
Huh. All right, guys. Here's your final question. I ask everybody this question. I get some very interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, that's one of my favorite movies, to perform, collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be? You can't
Oh,
say Rush.
Ooh.
and you
Yeah,
can't
we've
say
talked
Rush.
about Rush too
We already
much.
talked about Rush.
Well, Grant, are there any that come to mind immediately for you?
I need to think for a second.
For me, honestly, I would be really, really torn personally between saying somebody that's been a huge influence to me, like I guess Steven Wilson is the first one that comes to
Hmm.
mind. Like
Yep.
I would love to have the opportunity to pick his brain, collaborate
Yeah.
with him. But I would be torn between saying somebody like him versus somebody who maybe I'm not as influenced by, but who I am like incredibly in awe of, like their abilities. And if it was that, if it was somebody that I'm not as influenced by, it would probably be either it would probably be one of the dudes from Steely Dan, honestly.
Mm,
Mm,
Walter Becker, Donald Fagen, one of those
yeah.
two. They'd probably be my choices just because
dude.
I love their music.
Me
One,
too.
I am influenced by them to some level, but I just have tremendous respect for them as songwriters, for their abilities to write music that is intricate, has so many layers, so much going on, and yet is appealing to everybody on earth and
Yeah.
is universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw a special on Netflix about Asia, the making of
Oh,
Asia, which is
cool.
very interesting.
Oh man, I'd
Yeah,
love to watch that.
basically, Steely Dan brought jazz into the commercial
Into
realm,
pop, right?
into
Yeah.
pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
That's
and all the
wild.
artists they had working on the albums they were incredible players,
Right.
Yeah.
They
Right.
really
All the
were.
world's best.
Yeah. But they were basically a studio band,
Yeah. Yeah.
when they played live, it was hard to get all these musicians together,
Right.
that played on the studio albums.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I would probably does it have to be a prog artist?
No, 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 of course not.
No.
Could be
I
Beethoven.
This is weird. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with Riley's too, is like not someone who has inspired my music, but someone
Hmm.
who I am in awe of
Right.
and would love to just be around, be in the same room with. Harry Styles.
Oh,
He
wow.
Oh,
is
cool.
Yeah,
amazing.
Interesting.
that's
Like
different.
his music, every time it comes on, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot how good this song was. Like it's consistently good. he's an actor. He's kind of like the everything,
Right.
And like if someone was like, hey, you're an amateur songwriter, you want to hang with Harry Styles? If I was like, do I want to get a drink? I'd be like, hell yeah. If they were like, he wants to write a song with you, I'd be like, nope, I'm too scared. he's like Dallo, like I'm not, I just am like not even at his level in any way. And I would just be so scared. But like a dream would be to feel like I'm ready to collaborate with him.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
So anyway,
I love Harry Styles. I actually
so
very much
good.
agree with that.
And it's like, how can you listen to his music? And sure, you might be like, it's not my thing, but it's good, right? But like, no one's like, oh, this music sucks. Like, I mean,
well, you listen to Harry
like,
Styles,
so
and you can tell that he's obviously in the modern pop genre, but you can also simultaneously tell that he loves classic pop. He loves Queen. He loves the Beach Boys. He loves the Beatles. You can tell that listening to him, and that's that he's very diverse because of that.
He's a salt of the earth kind of writer.
Yeah,
I don't know how he is as a person, but as far as like the way he writes, I feel like he's very like salt of the earth, like savory, but not in your face,
Yeah. Good answers. Number one answer I always get is Paul McCartney.
Of course.
Oh, like, yeah, for sure.
Which is so obvious, So
yeah, and like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, one of my favorite artists of all time, Paul McCartney, the Beatles, Lennon. Like, of course, they wrote the most hits out of anybody. But it's like, one, that is kind of obvious, and two, I don't know. I never would imagine myself being like, yeah, Paul, you're my vibe, like for me personally. So.
I wouldn't even know what to do if I met Paul.
I'd probably shit my pants.
I just stare at him and walk away eventually.
That's funny. I wouldn't be like that, As a matter of fact, if I interviewed Paul, I wouldn't even talk about the Beatles because everything's been done.
It's
I know, it's true. That's so true. Yeah. They've been scrutinized and put under a microscope for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My hero has always been Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull.
Oh, man.
I got to interview Ian 3 times.
Nice.
No way.
And I did that. I didn't talk about a lot of the same old questions. I talked about religion and politics.
Oh, I
and
bet
all
he
kinds of other
appreciated
crap.
that so much.
Oh, yeah. He's so cool,
Well,
And I finally got to do a Zoom interview with Ian. And I'm singing, I'm looking at Ian and he's looking at me. And it's just me and him,
Wow.
I told him, I says, Ian, I just got to tell you, man, you are my absolute rock hero. And he says, oh, you probably say that to all the girls. He's a funny guy too. Man. His humor.
No, he's deserving of that though, man. He's something else.
That's right. Legends, man.
What a talent.
Legends.
I know. You guys, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, man. I would say special thanks to Austin. Is it Kokel? Is that how you pronounce
Austin
his name?
Kokel,
yeah.
Austin Kokel for arranging this interview with Advent Horizon.
Thank you, Austin. We love you.
You can purchase your latest album, A Cell to Come Home. I've got, let's see, thebandwagonusa.com. I think there's a link over there for US, and there's also a link for Europe. The Europeans.
So if you go to our website, just adventhorizonmusic.com, there's a merch button right at the top. If you click that, it'll ask you, are you shopping from the US or from Europe? And you just click on the corresponding one. Unfortunately, we don't have distribution in South America right now. Trying, get there eventually, but at least in the US and Europe, we got you covered.
Good. You're on Facebook. You're on Spotify, Instagram. You have your own YouTube channel.
We're on TikTok too. So
you're on TikTok too.
Oh yeah, follow our TikTok. We only have 9 followers. Somebody follow it.
I'm not very big on TikTok.
A prog band right there. 9 followers on TikTok.
That's funny.
Yeah, for sure. That's not our demographic for sure. But it's still fun to throw up the most ridiculous stuff on that site. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. You guys going skiing or snowboarding soon or again?
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
We both skied today.
Yep.
I'm skiing this weekend.
Hitting the slopes soon.
I'm
going to
snow
be
is good.
I'm going to be in Jacksonville, Florida this weekend.
Really? What are you doing there?
Gig that I'm doing. I just another corporate gig. I don't even know what company we're playing for. I just know that one of the bands I play with is playing in Jacksonville this weekend.
Oh, okay.
So, unfortunately, not skiing, and also unfortunately, when I'm in Jacksonville, the temperature dips down into the 40s for the one day I'm there. So it's going to be in the 70s until I'm there, and then 40s while I'm there, and then back in the 70s after.
Bringing the weather.
I'm near Tampa. It's always warm here, but it did get cold a little bit.
You're lucky.
if it hits 50 here, we go nuts. It's like
yeah, for sure.
we're freaking
School's
out, man. Thanks, guys. The album's awesome. 5 stars. You're an incredible band. We love you guys. Keep up the good work. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ray. It's awesome to meet you, man. You've been
Me
great
too.
to talk to. You've asked some great questions. We really appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.